Can I call you back? All right.
Join us for the invocation, please. Father, we thank you for this day and for these people. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to come together to do the business of the people. We ask for your wisdom, for your guidance, that we can make the proper decisions today. We thank you, Lord, for all the many blessings that you've given us, for the place we live, for the freedom that we have that does come from you. We thank you, Father, for all of our first responders, all of our soldiers who protect those freedoms. And we pray, Father, that you would watch over them and protect them. These things, Lord, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody have any changes to the agenda? Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. This brings us to citizens wishing to speak. One of the things that we're going to do, this particular meeting is going to be a little different from most. You can speak now on anything that you want to speak about, any subject. Once we get into the business of the discussion and possible action of the American Recovery Plan, we're going to ask that there not be comments unless it's requested back and forth, some information is requested or whatever. So we will proceed that way. If we get to that point and, you know, we're doing something wrong or we're forgetting something or you just have to say something, it's okay. You know, we're just going to try to muddle through this. Okay. Citizens wishing to speak. Anybody that would like to speak? All right, then we'll move to discussion and possible action of the American Recovery Plan. We have several items that we feel would be safe to implement at this point. We're not talking about the full amount of what we have available right now that can be used, but these are things that we do want to go ahead and get started on. I'm going to bring up the first thing. I think there's at least three, maybe more. But I'm kind of going to kick off the first thing with talking about premium pay and the possibility of some bonuses. It does appear to us that premium pay can be awarded to essentially anybody, any county employee who worked through the pandemic. Because they were, whatever they did, basically they were at risk. I can't think of a single county job that entails no risk during that time. The only one really that would be if somebody worked full-time out of their home, and that's not applicable to us. So one of the things, and I'm just going to throw this out there to get the conversation started, would be to utilize a portion of that money to provide a one-time bonus for all county employees. Just to throw a figure out, I'll say $3,000 for full-time and $1,500 for part-time. That would apply to every county employee with the exception of elected officials. That's prohibited. But I think it would do an awful lot toward helping out our employees that don't make as much as they should because we haven't been able to pay them as much as we wish we could. Maybe it'll give them a reason to hang in there with us a little longer while we can come up with a 22 budget and try to see if we can increase some salaries, and that's something that obviously we're going to be looking into, but nobody knows if, when, or how much. So, with that out there, anybody have any discussion on it?
I didn't know if I was gonna be a citizen or
I didn't know if you meant
in
us to go down
the
first.
discussion.
Oh, that's good.
Feedback.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not trying to throw a kink in anything. I think it's very much well deserved. I think 3,000 is a good number. I think 4,000 is better.
It's a better number.
I really do. And the reason I say that from a public safety standpoint, the state is, I think, passed something such that public safety, local public safety can get $1,000. I made the comment when we met, Keith and all the department heads met some time back, and my statement was this: I stand by it, but I also understand that y'all got to look at the thing. I made the statement and said this: I don't think that it needs to be a dime less than $5,000. That's my stance. It's not up to me to make that decision. I want y'all. I think $3,000 is very fair. I think 4,000 would be better, and 5,000 would be better than that. I do have a question, and that's why I'm up here talking. Is the and this is on a personal standpoint, is the elected official clause, is that based on the CARES Act, or would that be state law, or why can't we get that?
As I understand it, it's not state law, it's just the provision that was put into place by the department, well, I forget which department was coming out with the final rulings.
On the CARES Act money?
Well, on the, this is actually the American Recovery Act money. but-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my
I was
understanding.
just curious on that.
Keith, is that the way you saw it? Keith is our resident expert on this.
You can never.
Anything that anybody ever wants to know.
You can never use
about-
expert in my name in the same sentence.
Yeah.
So this comes from the National Association of Counties and their breakdown of the American Rescue Plan. And it discusses in premium pay for essential workers. And in this, now I've not seen, the final ruling for the American Rescue Plan has not come out yet. We are operating under an interim final rule. The final rule will be coming out once the letter from the National Association of Counties, which was submitted on July 16th to the Treasury Department. Once that gets reviewed, the Treasury Department will come out with a final rule. That has yet to be seen. I don't even know when they anticipate doing that. I would assume it would probably be in the next few months, seeing as that they've had that letter since July 16th. But we're still waiting for the final rule. But in the interim final rule, it does not specify whether this can be, whether this is restricted for elected officials. In the documentation that they provided, it does not negate the bonus for elected officials.
So it does not prevent it.
No, sir.
The CARES Act did though, didn't
CARES Act did, but CARES Act is
it?
different.
So I'm confusing the two then.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
CARES Act was completely different in that the funding was available for, well, let's see here. It gives a breakdown here in the difference between the ARPA, as it's commonly known as the American Rescue Plan Act, referred to as ARPA, and the CARES Act guidance are two completely different guidances when it comes to payroll expenses and premium pay. Now, I think what you're referring to when you talk about elected officials is payroll expenses. Because payroll expenses did not include elected officials or department heads.
You know what I think I'm going back to was when we were allowed to give reimbursement for a portion of the public safety at that point.
Yes, sir.
That was primarily dedicated to COVID, and then they made the ruling that all public safety was primarily dedicated to COVID.
That's correct.
At that time, they specified that any bonuses could not go to elected officials or command staff. I
That's
believe
correct.
they even included that at that point.
That is correct.
So I'm
That's
probably
very
just
sad.
falling back to that. I tend to assume that, you know, rules for one is rules for another, but I should not make that assumption.
No, so you are correct in what you're saying, that applied to the CARES Act funding, which was back in, was it 2000, or 2020? CARES Act funding came out in 2020?
What I would suggest, 2020.
Yes, sir.
What I would suggest is that we speak to one or two counties that have already done this to see if they included elected officials.
I think that's fine, Mr. Chairman, but personally, I don't want it, I don't think I should get it. That's elected official.
And I don't disagree with that, but we can exempt ourselves.
I agree with myself.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that says we can't exempt ourselves and the rest don't get it, so. But I would like to see what White County and some of those other folks are doing before we make the final determination. We can go down the path of everything else. We can decide how much and all that stuff, and just leave the one open question of elected officials. And in fact, I would be okay with saying that we go ahead and include them unless we find out that why there's some of these other counties have encountered some reason not to. They would have to take another look at it. What do y'all think? Yeah. Well, the elected officials were at risk just as much as the employees that worked for them. And personally, if there's no prohibition, I'm okay with doing that. I do believe that since we're the ones voted in, we should not be included in it. And I think everybody up here is fine with that. So I would suggest that we not include the commissioners, but everybody else could be.
I mean, take a thought one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay.
With regard to the amount, I picked up somewhere that there might be consideration of a different amount for public safety and others, a lesser amount for others. That's not what you're proposing.
It's not.
We'll be clear.
And that may have been what I said, and I'm gonna speak and say that, so you can go ahead, Hubert, and then I'll.
No, I'm just trying to find out what, for sure what we're saying.
I was under the impression of what Charlie just said, and when I came into this, or looked through this, I feel as if public safety should get more in the amount of $3,500 and $2,500 for full-time and $1,500 for part-time. So you may have showed my numbers where I suggested. I feel like public safety, those first responders should get a little bit more than those that didn't quite put their life at risk, even though I understand they did, but it was just a lot of pressure, a lot on all of our public safety.
I guess the reason I was thinking about straight across the board is because I was able to see that we had a lot of county employees that they got the COVID. And I understand that includes public safety. A lot of those folks got it too. I'm not sure that they got it in a greater percentage though than the rest of the county. And that's probably because they were taking greater precautions than the rest of the county. But I think my feeling on that would be, let's pick a figure that can be higher for public safety, but then let's extend that to everybody.
I think 3,000 is a good figure, and I don't mind it being for everybody. I think not a personnel problem, we don't.
That's one of my concerns with that, yeah.
And part-time was half that.
Half that. And the other stipulation, I think, would have to be that anybody that has been with the county less than 90 days, if you're employed with the county right now, but for less than 90 days, then I would propose that you still get it, but not until you reach your 90 days. And I would say, if you're not employed with the county right now and you become a county employee tomorrow, you wouldn't get it.
I was gonna ask about the cutoff date, and I assume this is gonna be a payroll item, Sandy?
Yes.
So everybody would need to understand there'll be withholdings, and if it's $3,000, they will not get $3,000.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be a separate item, not like the regular pay.
We would show it separately on the stub, but it would be taxed just like regular payroll.
Now, would this be a separate payment or in with the regular payroll? Because if it's combined in, they can make their taxes for that.
Yeah, we probably would want to do a separate,
Yeah,
one's gonna make me come to the microphone.
she's like that.
We probably would want to do a separate check for
Yeah.
those.
Okay.
We can work with that later. I'll let you worry about that. But if you do it, if you're not careful, you do a separate item, you'll have a flat 20% federal. And flat 6% state, which would be worse perhaps. So this, I'll let you work through it.
Yeah, we'll look at it.
I think whatever Hubert says on that, we should do, because he's the man that knows that stuff.
Whatever's the most advantageous to the
Exactly.
employee.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We'll look at it both ways.
They didn't want somebody to get called.
Yeah. Okay, so basically what we're talking about then would be $3,000 for all county employees, with the only exception being the commissioners. That's for full-time. $1,500 for all part-time county employees. Anybody that's here for less than 90 days would still get either the full-time or part-time based on their situation, but they wouldn't get it until their 90 days. And essentially today is cut off. If you're hired after this, I don't really think that we could make a good case for in the fact that you were subjected to risk with all this. So
That's in the form of a motion.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second
Any further discussion?
I do just make note that I wish public safety was getting a little bit more, but yes, I will approve the motion. Of course, I want them to go bonus, but.
You know what's the only thing worse than having the sheriff come to the microphone or something like this? Having them all come to the microphone.
There's a reason I don't come to many commissioners' meetings. And I will say this, I'm gonna say this, I appreciate the consideration.
Can I join this bunch?
No, please don't allow Jim up here with me.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Appreciate the consideration, I appreciate your thought, Karleen, your proposal. I do think all the county employees, and I do feel like it would probably cause animosity. I feel like public safety was at an elevated greater risk, I do. But I also know that the probate judge's office, the probate judge, the tax commissioner, her office, and she I don't think she ever missed a day. So all that to say this, I think it ought to be even across the board. The state is just announced, I think yesterday, the state is doing something for local public safety that it'll be a little more. The county's doing more, and we appreciate it. I'm gonna let Keith to speak before I sit down.
The county as a whole, as far as employees within the county, we are experiencing a shortage of personnel countywide, from Jim's department, roads, to the sheriff's department, to our department. We are experiencing shortages in manpower. That being said, this also could be used as a tool for us to be able to bring in more people to the county for employment. We have several vacancies that need to be filled. And with that 90 days, if we were to be able to push that out for a hard stop date on November 1st, that would give us the period of October to try and also use this as a basic recruitment tool to bring in people and fill those vacancies. We have these vacancies that are already programmed, we're already getting the funding for these vacancies. We just don't have, as we call it, rear ends and seats.
My concern with that would be, are we getting far enough out of the box with that to get somebody's attention at the federal level? They might want to take a harder look at us because it wasn't their intent that we use it as a recruiting tool.
I think
That's
that's
the
clear
question.
off, have to have a firm date. Can't we go beyond that?
And that firm date would be
Today.
today.
And if you're employed yesterday, 89 days from now, they get the bonus. I don't think we can get it.
I will say this though, if I can get it out. I'm sorry, half my face is numb from a dental visit here, so y'all bear with me. We're gonna go through this again next year. You know, we'll get part 2 of this. And obviously the COVID is still progressing and spiking, and it may very well be that we could do another one of these for the at-risk. I don't know. I don't want to put that out as a promise.
Yeah, let's don't go down that road yet.
Okay. Then never mind.
Now the gene is out. Yeah, right.
We just really like to be able to see something like this to help us
Yeah.
in a moving forward fashion to get additional employees.
Well,
Whether it be a right, they wouldn't get the money until they work their 90 days.
well,
Just have to give that 90-day period.
having expressed my concerns about it, let me ask Hubert and Karleen, y'all's thoughts on it.
I think, as I said, I think there has to be a firm date. Otherwise, you're gonna have a flood of employees, and they're gonna resign 6 months from now.
Yeah, I agree.
And that could happen with the employees that we have.
Yes, but that's my position.
Okay. Karleen?
I really am concerned with what Charlie brought up, that it could be used as a recruiting tool, and I don't know if that's the exact purpose behind the reason for giving the money.
I feel pretty safe saying that that's definitely not the purpose behind it.
That's the only reason I could see.
And, well, I just would be concerned that we might put ourselves on the radar, and I would not want that. I don't, remember, I'm sure we're doing what we're allowed to do, but that doesn't mean that we want somebody, trying to peel back the layers.
We did make adjustments, approve adjustments in the fire recently, salary adjustments.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Let me mention
Absolutely.
this.
That's for existing employees. That's for our current staff.
Let me mention this. A lot of times I'll come in here and, I'm never hesitant for saying what I think about something. But what I don't do at that point is indicate how I came to believe whatever it is I said. So, and Hubert and Karleen really don't get the benefit of that. That's just something that's going on in my head as we prepare for the meetings. I would like to give my thought process on the $3,000 in public safety. My original figure was $2,000. And with the idea that public safety should have more than that, I thought about it and decided that I would be fine with going with $3,000 for public safety. But then thinking about it a little bit more, I felt that it was important that this be across the board and not this much for public safety and this much for everybody else. So basically what I did for my thought process and my proposal was I kept public safety at 3,000, just raised everybody else up. So when we talk about 3,000, there's kind of a bump that was initially built in for public safety, but it just didn't seem right not to include everybody. So that was my thought process. The number of people that got COVID while they were on the job, within public safety, but also within everywhere else. We had a lot of it, and that's the best demonstration I can think of the fact that every one of our employees were at risk, because whether it's housekeeping or maintenance, road department, you name it, solid waste. There's not a county department here that we didn't have to shut down for at least a week. Some of them twice and 3 times because the employees were getting COVID. So I don't want to make light of the risk for public safety, but I do want to recognize that everybody else had a high risk too, just by coming to work. So, and now, everybody all over social media that Charlie's anti-public safety. So,
We don't feel that way at all.
well, thank you.
Not at all.
We thank all of y'all for the consideration on this, because you could have all number 2 pencils and a notepad, $6 million worth of it, but we appreciate the thought on that.
All right, thank you.
Commissioners, thank you on behalf of Fire Rescue. Fully support you across the board for each employee that equal amounts.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Well, I want to echo what my friends and colleagues have said there, but I also want to remind you as the commission and them and the public. During the period of 2020, we in the road department and the solid waste department, we experienced a lot of COVID infections. In the solid waste department, folks, we lost 3 people died of COVID, 3 employees. In the road department, we had numerous infections and quarantines and things like that. And in my mind, a bonus says something to those employees that stuck it out, that were there. We never missed a day of operation, even if we were operating at half or quarter staff. We never had a solid waste center to shut down, and to me, that's what a bonus is. Keith and I, both of our departments, and probably Stacy too, we are short people, but I kind of feel like Charlie. This is not a recruiting tool. It is more of saying to those employees, and I mean this sincerely, elected officials should not be excluded. You stuck it out and you kept the county operating. Maybe we were limping on one leg or whatever, but to me, that's what a bonus is. We can deal with the recruiting things in the 22 budget. But I agree with you, Charlie and Hubert. I think it needs to be a message to the employees that are with us, that stuck with us, and that are here, that kept the county going.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
One thing I want to kind of throw out there, no, I'm sorry, not specifically.
Okay.
One thing that I want to kind of throw out there is that we have been, and may off and on continue to refer to this as a bonus because it's a, I guess that's just kind of what comes to mind when we think of it. But this is not actually a bonus. This is, essentially, this is hazard pay. And I particularly want to throw that out for Mr. Ashhurst, who's writing this down, that we're not talking about bonuses, we're talking about hazard pay, whatever term we use for it, so.
I want to preface what I'm going to say, that I don't mean to take anything away from public safety because you guys know what we think about you guys. But one thing that was just mentioned, and I don't know if Karleen and Hubert know, but Charlie just mentioned that maintenance did work through all that, but the people that I really appreciate was the housekeeping, because housekeeping was not just sent here to sterilize this whole building, they were sent out to all the fire stations. So when you talk about frontline, if somebody was sick with COVID, our housekeepers had to go, which to date, there's only one of those housekeepers left that was here at that time. But just, I mean, they were sent. If somebody was sick and they said we're shut down because of COVID, our housekeeping ladies went and they cleaned that whole thing. So they were as close as you can get to it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure, and I appreciate you saying that, but I told them that if that came up, that I would make sure that they knew. But like I said, there's only one of them left from that time. But
And I agree 100% everything he just said.
it was a team effort.
Good afternoon. I want to echo what the sheriff and the rest of these folks have said. Speaking from the behalf of my employees in the probate court, I think this is a tremendous idea and very much appreciative. We have had in our office, myself including three other employees have tested positive since this all began. And some were sent home and was not able to work, and was not able at one time to even get paid for being sent home and not being able to work. So I do thank you for considering doing this for the employees and helping them in this uncertain time. And it looks like it's going to continue for a little while. So I think this will help our current employees to feel appreciated, if nothing else, and to know that they came to work risking their health and their family's health, and the county recognizes that, and I appreciate y'all considering this. I had a question because I'm hearing the American Recovery Plan and then a CARES Act plan. And Charlie, I have talked to you about money funding for certain things, like in our courtroom, to be able to help us do virtual hearings, so in-person hearings. Is that from the CARES Act or the American Recovery? Which one of those covers that?
Right now, that's the CARES Act that's covering that, and it's my understanding that the courtrooms A, B, and C have that equipment. And courtroom D, I talked to Kevin about that, and basically told him that we can certainly provide that for that courtroom as well, that they just need to give me a couple of quotes on it.
I have reached out to the vendor that installed courtrooms A, B, and C, and he's working on an estimate for me now for courtroom D. He did say that technology has increased in expense, which don't surprise me. But
Well, as long as we're under $50,000, we're okay to do it with a couple of quotes, but now if it's increased over $50,000, we'll have to bid it out.
it did not, he told me that it was under 20, but
I was gonna say, I don't think it was anywhere around 50.
So we're working on that. I've also got another request that I was going to make in an email to you as well. And I don't know if this would fall in that same category or not, but a lot of my other fellow probate judges in other counties that has had COVID run through their office, they've had to shut down their office or either send everybody home and quarantine. There's several of those that have adopted or somehow put into place where their employees were able to obtain laptops so they could carry their laptop home and access work from home at the office. So they did not miss any days of work, they still were able to be paid, and work still got done, and we didn't technically shut down the probate office. We could still take filings, we could still issue gun permits, wedding applications. So I don't know what that would entail to do that in my office. I'd have to probably get a proposal for that as well. And I didn't know if it would even fall in that CARES Act money or not for that purpose.
I don't believe that well, the CARES Act money's already allocated, so now we're only working with the American Recovery Act. I don't believe there's anything in that would cover that, but what I would suggest is determine how many laptops you feel like you need, and multiply that by $1,200 and put that in your budget.
Okay.
Now, let me rephrase that, put it in your proposed budget.
Right. Is that capital improvement?
Under capital, and we'll just have to see if we can accommodate it.
Well, I know that we're a little bit different than some offices where we just can't put a closed sign on the door and go home because we got legal obligations that we've got. Unless the Superior Court shuts us down, then we can get away with that. But I'm trying to figure out a way, if the spike happens again, if something happens, if we get shut down, I don't want to be in the newspaper for not issuing gun permits or marriage license or doing our job because we're not here for some reason. So I was just trying to think outside the box, maybe we can continue to do our work.
Well, it's just something we'll have to address with the 22 budget, so.
I just want to be sure that it didn't fall within what we were talking about today.
No.
And the last thing is, and I just thought about this while I was sitting there, you mentioned full-time workers and part-time workers. What do we consider our poll workers for elections? I know they're contract workers, I guess they are still part-time, so they would be out of this discussion.
I don't see them being in it. I had a discussion with somebody the other day about even part-time workers. Part-time assumes up to 29 hours a week. You know, if you've got somebody that's working 8 hours a week, that's the whole, that, in my mind, that's not really what we define as part-time. So it may very well be, and in fact, I would make the recommendation that for part-time workers, if somebody's only working 9 or 10 hours a week, they get prorated on that basis. And in that scenario, a poll worker would come out with basically nothing.
So for clarification, if I'm asked by poll workers, they would not be included in this discussion as hazard.
That would be my opinion, but now.
Okay. I just want to be sure in case I do get asked. And thank y'all again for considering.
Thank you, Scott. Okay. Next item of business.
Are we gonna vote on that?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we had.
We did all in favor.
We didn't.
I didn't do it all in favor?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
See, it didn't hurt.
It did. Well, and I tell you what hurt. Her keep correcting me and making me do what I'm supposed to do. Okay. Somebody else be a little gentler about it, though. So. All right. The next thing that I wanted to discuss on this is heating and air upgrades, HVAC upgrades. We have an opportunity because HVAC would be a really important, I'll say preventative for lack of a better word, on all this, in that right now our systems are old and very inefficient. We could replace those with systems which separate areas better, and which, by the way, would incorporate UV, so that there's some sterilization involved with the air that's being pulled out of one section and put right back in. This would be something that just our best estimates at this point, and that's all it is, would probably be $300,000. And I would be talking about doing this with the courthouse, the jail, and essentially every building that the county owns, because none of them have anything close to being efficient and effective, and certainly no UV element to it. So I would, my only concern in making the recommendation that we do that is that 300,000 sounds low to me for what we're talking about, but.
Same here, I mean, need more information before we go down this road, don't we? So we have some idea. I mean, we approve the courthouse, wait and see how it goes, or do we do one at a time and see what the cost is?
I wouldn't have a problem with doing one at a time if we could start with the courthouse, because that's where the most interaction is. Short of the jail, I would say jail would be next.
Real quick, and I'll talk loud. If I come up there, I'll be longer. I think we had an actual fairly hard estimate on the HVAC at the jail. Half of those are the better part of 21 years old, and the rest are since about 2009, so what's that, 12 years old? But it was like, I'm thinking $80,000 in that ballpark for hours at the jail. And we do have failing systems up there that do need addressed as soon as possible. It'll be a budget item if it's not this item.
Well, and that's the same situation that we've got with the courthouse. We have had so many outages this year that it's very clear that we're going to have to do this, whether we do it with the American Recovery Act money or whether we do it as just a capital line item. We're going to have to start doing this very quickly.
Just to give you an idea, I've talked in passing with Associated Air that does our air conditioning, and Unit 2, which I'm sure Scott's in here. Scott wants Unit 2 going. Unit 2 and Phase 2 does probate, magistrate, commissioner's area, the HR, all of those. So when that goes down, there's no air conditioning in there. They had actually had a unit they had to replace with that, and it was actually on the ground, and that unit 2 years ago, just for the unit, was $75,000. So by the time you run a crane and pull the old one off, it's a 55-ton unit. I mean, it's massive. So, I mean, right there, you could easily probably spend $125,000 just on that one unit by the time you get a crane to pick this one off, put another one up, and have it all connected.
What else would we have to be concerned with at the courthouse?
What's that?
What other units would we have to be concerned with here?
The other one that I know isn't working correctly, which they might be able to look at, is Unit 8. The heat strips in that don't want to work in the winter, which is the one they just did work on Unit 8, and within 2 weeks, we spent $10,000 on Unit 8 just to get the air conditioning going, which is tag office and tax assessors through that area, judges area. So that's another one, but just like Sheriff was saying, there's 14 units on the roof, and most of those are 30-ton on up to the largest one is a 55-ton. So that's just to give you, I mean, I wouldn't tell you, yeah, go by that, my estimate, but just to give you an idea, that's what kind of thing we're talking about. They're big units. And then there's smaller ones, like all of the courtrooms have like 15 or 20-ton units, which those seem to run well. I probably just jinxed it.
My concern on that would be, if we could replace those that give us such trouble and cost us so much money, utilizing the Recovery Act money, that would be, I think, a big plus in that if we don't do it that way, we're gonna have to do it with just straight capital line item.
I'm fine to commit to doing it, we don't know now what it's gonna be.
Yeah, I
We have to
agree.
be careful about making other commitments. I'm fine.
Why don't we do this? Eric, congratulations.
I get an extra bonus?
I'll give you $3,000 if you will. No, we need individual estimates on these things so that we can, first of all, know exactly what it's going to cost us overall, and secondly, make a plan of what needs to be done first and what can be done last and so forth.
How many companies do we need to come out?
At this point, if I could just get an estimate to give us an idea,
Okay, well, I get it.
but two would be preferable. This is going to be something that's going to be bid out, so,
Okay.
you know, the estimate right at this point is just to give us some idea of how much we'll be allocating.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to bid them
I'll
out.
put it out here, ask them to come out.
Yeah. So, and just to show you what a great guy I am, I'm going to give you all the way up to the October meeting to do that.
All right.
All right. So,
I can do it.
all right, thank you. That's it, okay, yeah. Edwina, we can make sure we have an agenda for that. The last item I want to talk about is one that I'm more iffy about, I guess, because I'm gonna just say I'm not sure I understand all I know about this. Which is why we're gonna tax David's abilities here today. I had a conversation with Lloyd Paris up in Union County. I figured, you know, if I'm gonna act advice to somebody, it needs to be another Paris. Even if he is a Democrat. But anyway, Lloyd's got the same problem we have. And in fact, as near as I can tell, I don't think there's a county in North Georgia that doesn't have the same problem. I'm talking about workforce housing. It is common all throughout North Georgia. But he was telling me that a solution they were considering, and I emphasize considering because I don't want to be, you know, having people up in Union County saying, when is this going to happen or anything. So that's all I'll say about Union, and I'll talk about Gilmer now. If we were to find a piece of property, just to pick a number, I'll say 30 acres, and purchase that property, and get it ready for a higher volume or a higher density zoning. And I'm thinking in terms of probably triplexes, maybe quadplexes. Put it out into individual lots. Open that up to the builders to build specifically triplexes, quadplexes that are not, if there's any such thing, luxury triplexes and quadplexes. They could build on the lot that the county has purchased and prepared, and then when that sells, whatever they built, when that sells, they would reimburse the county for that portion of the expenditure that was made to make all that possible. Such that when everything's built out, the county gets all its money back. I don't know if that's even legal, and which is my reference to David, but.
Well, do we even want to get legal yet? Do we want to get in the real estate business? And does it become unrelated business, income subject to income tax?
See, that's the thing that I don't know. That's why.
But first, we want to get in the real estate business.
Yeah.
When we are struggling, as we are, to make a budget.
Yeah.
I'm-
Well, this would all have to come from the American Rescue Funds.
Can you buy property with American Rescue Funds? I thought you couldn't.
No? Okay.
Our experts say that.
Yes, Rick, our subject matter expert up here.
No, do not write that down, Andy, Lonnie. Okay, so, in the interim final rule, we cannot purchase property. NACO's letter to the Treasury Department recommends for future guidance in the final rule that counties be authorized to purchase property. So that has not been authorized to purchase land as of yet. It is in NACO's recommendation for the final rule to the Treasury Department. But as we sit today, no.
Okay. Well, then I will just mark that down as my desperate attempt to address something, but we'll forget about it.
Well, in executive session sometime, I'll give you another thought.
Okay. That's
Not that good a thought. A thought.
all right. Never mind.
It does address affordable housing development, and increased supply of affordable housing, affordable and high quality living needs. It does address that, but it does not specifically say that we can purchase property.
It's maybe if they have property, excess property already, the county owns it and can.
If the county owns the property already, then they can do what they see fit with it.
Well, the county owns 2 pieces of property, but one of them is off Yukon Road, and we can't put more on Yukon Road. We just can't. The other one's just off 515. It's 11 acres. I don't know if that would be appropriate property or satisfactory property for that sort of thing, but in any event,
You covered what I was talking about.
okay, yeah. I was aware that we had those two, but and the one off Yukon probably would be, in terms of the lay of the land and so forth, probably okay. But again, Yukon Road is just, well, we can't contribute to the overpopulation on Yukon that way. Whereas something right off 515, just a hop and skip from 515, I think would be a better solution if we were going to go that route.
Especially if it had water and sewer. I don't know if it does or not. But
I know. I understand that it does. Do you know, Nikki?
Going, which you say,
This is no, on the, behind the fire station there on 515.
behind Station 11 there?
I don't know what station
That would be the White Path, you're talking about on White Path?
Yeah.
White Path does have water. White Path does not.
No water, no sewer.
Which brings up another topic.
Yeah.
You're talking about when we do developments, they're worried about the wells. This could be used, some of this could be used for extended water.
It could be, yeah. Yeah.
You say it could be.
And I think that would be a wonderful use for it, as long as we didn't try to extend sewer along with it.
No, sewer's too expensive.
Yeah.
The Yukon side already has water, but
It goes out to the
if
county
it
line.
goes It goes right by.
But that's the problem though, is Yukon is just, has been worn out.
Talk to me about road improvements, widening of Yukon.
We will.
If we ever decide to four-line Yukon, I'm gonna let you break the news to the neighbors.
But you could, Charlie, if you were looking at that development, for those that don't know, the little triangle that sits between Old Pleasant Valley and Yukon Road, where the,
Go to the microphone.
Take the hot seat, 'cause I'm done.
the site that the chairman is referring to sits actually north of the fire station, the convenience center, the kids' cottage. Was actually purchased in 2005 and has been laying there for the most part fallow, with the exception of what has been pieced off of it. It has water running, a 6-inch water main in front of it. And if there were improvements made on Yukon and the intersection of Old Pleasant Valley and Yukon Road, and it's 10 acres, Charlie, is that 10 acres? 9 acres? 9 acres? Okay. But again, using that, to me, sometimes you can kill two birds with one stone. If you had it as a housing development and improve Yukon Road, which would improve not only Keith's access and Keith and Daniel's access to that station, our convenience center, I mean, we might do something else with that. But I could see a nice little project right there.
I think we'd have a really tough time though, improving any road for any reason with the American Recovery Act money.
If it was a part of the, development,
I don't know.
there's the expert right there.
Not under the current plan.
Come on, man.
Okay. You don't have to put that verbatim.
I know when to cut him out.
Yeah, she already knows.
Yeah, I just, there's many reasons I don't think the Yukon Road would be appropriate for it. I don't know about the 11 acres up on 515, so. But
It sits in there behind the fire station and convenience center. No water, no, you couldn't get your zoning to meet the problem is if it's the same site that I'm thinking about, Charlie, I think that site was actually acquired with GEO1 funds. The fire station, the convenience center, there is no public water there, no public sewer, of course. But I don't think you couldn't get your high density zoning
yeah,
to the requirements there to meet that site. Yukon, you could.
yeah, but Yukon has its
I
own problems. Maybe we get with Gary and see what can be done in terms of extending the water on that.
And what would be better probably is in the second phase,
Yeah,
because to give them time.
yeah, okay. All right, that's, oh, we need to get an ambulance with this. And shouldn't have a problem with that. So we'll be looking at, looks like $230,000 for that.
And we had already talked about the community outreach vehicle.
That, in a discussion with Keith, he's suggesting that we hold off on that. So,
And make sure I understand that there was a real need when this came up, and we had to go ahead and do it. That's the first thing we did.
Keith, you want?
So now we're saying it's not.
He's not saying it's not needed so much as, I think, as I understand
What I'd
it.
like to do, I know we discussed I believe it was 430,000 for that community outreach vehicle. I'm looking into other options on being able to purchase this at a lower price. So I'm doing a lot more research right now than I had previously done, just because this was, it was a quick turnaround. So I'm able to do a little bit more research and try to find a vehicle at a lower rate that still meets the needs that we have.
We need to just leave that as is, knowing the amount might be different.
Right.
And it will certainly be less.
So we've approved it, but the amount may be different.
Right. Yes, sir.
Well, it won't be more, but it ideally would be less.
So we don't need any action today.
But, going back to the ambulance, unless you're wanting to discuss that more.
No, I'm,
The ambulance is something that can be easily justified on this. And ideally, what would happen is if we approve the ambulance out of this, we won't have to allocate capital funds in between two budget for it.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Same.
Then, let me see. If Daniel has something you want to say on that. Chief, did you want to say something about the ambulance?
Yeah, regarding the ambulance, I'd sent Sandy, under our capital, I did have an ambulance under the American Recovery or Rescue Plan. We were just confirming the price of the ambulance, and then we have radio install, and then striking a vehicle. So it's just confirming that the 230,000 was the ballpark on that. That should cover it.
Okay. Then I would make a motion that we approve 230,000, up to 230,000 for an ambulance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One of the things I'll throw out for discussion is whether or not that we would like to get a coroner transport vehicle. I initially was very much in favor of this when I was thinking that it could be used to carry the bodies to the Georgia Crime Lab, because we pay a large fee for that. But a vehicle that would be refrigerated and could do all that is more than I think would be appropriate to spend. Probably better just to keep paying the individual rates. So that being the case, I'm going to kind of back off on that one. The only other thing that I am aware of to throw out there is we, as I understand it, can allocate certain amounts of money to 501c3 organizations. The food pantry, as I understand it, would qualify. The Boys and Girls Club have asked to be included. My only reservation on any of that is, would we be opening floodgates?
I think we'd be opening the floodgates, and you're going to have a process of proposals, we're going to have a team evaluate them.
Yeah.
Some people are going to be happy, some are going to be unhappy. I really think we ought to steer away from that.
Okay.
I thought, Keith, you may have to remind me, I'd asked about the possible culverts for some of the roads that couldn't get emergency vehicles over and buses. Didn't we look at something that could be a possibility? I don't see my notes.
Honestly, I don't recall that.
Remember, I asked you about it, and I think it said, yes, I think there is a possibility. It was only because it was something to do with water or storm drainage, and I may have to look it up.
That was not one that I had particularly highlighted in here.
Correct, you had not. It was one in our discussion that when we asked about water and, not water and sewer infrastructure. There was something when I was reading through that I thought it might be eligible, and I can check through Charlie. I don't think we're
Honestly,
deciding.
I'd have to look a lot deeper into that one. I don't have an answer for that one.
I will as well.
That may come in the next, the infrastructure bill that's being considered right now.
Let me say this.
Rich isn't talking.
And I hear that a lot from people that, you know, emergency vehicles couldn't get to me. This is primarily folks that are not on county roads that would like to have those roads brought into the county system. And I hear a lot, emergency vehicles couldn't get to us. But I've asked over the months and years if there are any roads that our emergency vehicles could not get to. And the answer that I've pretty much always gotten is we can get wherever we need to go. Stacy, would that be?
Yeah, and I think,
Keith?
sorry, Charlie.
That's fine. From
From a public
a
safety.
public safety perspective, ambulance particularly.
Other than your some of your private driveways, which become a concern on some of our calls. Those are private driveways.
Yeah.
Otherwise, any of your roads, we've not had
Yeah, that's-
any restrictions getting on those roads.
And that's why,
There is a cost at times getting a large apparatus into a narrow driveway.
But we're talking about the roads.
The roads itself
county
are-
roads.
yeah.
These were, I think there were, you know, and it was something that Travis brought up, Crouch, specifically there, and I thought there was another one that if it wasn't emergency vehicles, it was oil or fuel, something of certain.
Oh, Travis brought that up in terms of bridges,
Right,
that some bridges weren't,
had been reduced.
they weren't labeled for enough weight for that. And we actually have a review going on right now of every bridge in Gilmer County that is being looked at separately, looked at in terms of, okay, what will it take to bring it up to where there are no restrictions? And we're doing that with every bridge, and then we are prioritizing that, which one needs to be done first, second, third, and so forth. And the priority is based on two things. First of all, need, and secondly, ability to do it. So if we've got, for instance, two bridges that have about the same need. One of them can be brought up to speed for 50,000, and the other one would take 500,000. Well, then 50,000 would be rated higher priority. Loy is the one who is doing that, and of course Loy is an engineer, so he's an appropriate person to do it. But right now we are in the process of going through every bridge in Gilmer and determining what needs to be done and what priority we need to do it in. So,
That's good news. Thank you, Charlie, for letting us know that.
yes, ma'am. Well, that's been going on ever since Travis brought it.
Okay, I just haven't heard any more.
Okay.
So that's good.
Okay. I know that as of 2015, every ambulance that we purchased, every road department vehicle that we purchased in terms of trucks and so forth has been four-wheel drive, and we used to have two-wheel drive ambulances, and I understand the concerns there, but everything in our ambulance fleet right now is four-wheel drive, and should be able to get most anywhere. So,
Unless it's private driveways.
Yes.
And Keith and
nothing we can do about it.
Daniel, I mean, the last disaster, we had private driveways that they couldn't access, but the culvert, Commissioner Ferguson, was on private property. It's not a part of the road
I'm
system.
not talking about
Yeah,
private property
yeah,
at all.
Yeah, we can't do anything about the private driveways.
Yeah, I've seen some driveways that aren't just.
Yeah. Okay, anything else?
Did you finish the county grant situation?
Yeah, I think that kind of went by the wayside.
What salary and wages you charge to this?
We can use the salary and wages portion of this to increase wages. And I'm going to say up to, what is $13 an hour or, no?
The one you're speaking of, that refers to the premium pay.
Now, the
We've already
premium,
discussed, and we've already.
premium pay is what we're using
Right.
for the,
So I believe, Commissioner, what you're referring to is the payroll and expenses for public health and
Right.
safety employees. And that's what would be reimbursed back into the county for the expenses paid for public safety payroll.
okay.
That would be reimbursed back to the county and the general fund.
So that would be similar to what we did with the CARES Act
Don't
money.
have to approve that.
We haven't yet.
So we're gonna do it now.
I bet we are.
Then we're gonna make it a million or a year and a half.
Well, it's one of these things that's gonna be whatever it is. And keep in mind that this is not necessarily money that we're spending out of this. Think of it more like money that we're converting, I guess.
You're reimbursing yourself.
We're reimbursing ourselves for this salary.
Well, I like the idea, just more than that.
Yeah, I mean, what it does is it frees us up to utilize that money for things we could not ordinarily use this for.
We're on the same page.
So
So we're all on board there.
we're all on board there, and I don't know if we really need a motion for that, but I'm gonna go ahead and make it that we pursue that.
Are you about to give us a dollar value?
Well, the dollar
You
value.
look like Sandy went over there and spoke to.
As a matter of fact,
Okay,
and this is as of September 24th. So in this payroll expenses for public health and safety employees, the qualifying employees would be basically the fire department EMS,
Right.
who's primarily dedicated to responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. That's how it's read for administrative purposes.
right,
That's basically 90% of our calls are COVID related or have been COVID related, which qualify that department. And all this is basically taking the salary and wages from that department as of March 1st of this year to present, and being able to take that and bring it back into the general fund.
And
that
what
figure,
does that work out to?
that figure would be $1,462,516.99.
With what we've already allocated here, do we have that much cushion left to do that?
I wouldn't think so. We don't know what the bonuses are, excuse me, the hazard pay is gonna run.
About 800,000, I believe, including
Well, yeah, it's probably gonna be about 900,000.
okay.
What we don't know is the ventilation or the AC, but then I guess we can do whatever we have money for.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, we're talking about doing this for reimbursement. The money's still gonna be there. The only difference is we can use it for whatever we want to. We just need to make sure that we haven't already spent an amount of this money that we can't claim for reimbursement for the full amount.
And also that the air conditioning project, the HVAC project will be done in phases. And we have the allotment of $3,046,530.50 this year. And then next year we'll receive the second installment of $3,046,530.50. So over that 2-year period is when the work would be done.
Yeah. So we've approved the hazard pay in the ambulance. What I would say is that we approve going for the reimbursement and basically stop there until we see what we have left over after that.
Then we already approved that's donation.
Now, I thought that was, we were gonna go ahead and get estimates on everything.
Yes.
So,
Okay. I assume the reason we get the estimate is we want to do it.
yes, but we can also do it though over this year and next. We still got another 3 million coming.
It's fine. I'm with you.
I don't think it'd be good to turn down reimbursement because we want to spend that on that. And if we want to spend it on that, we can still spend some of the reimbursement on it.
So where to go?
Okay, so basically then we'll stop where we are, and although I don't think it would take a vote, I'm going to make a motion that we pursue reimbursement as much as we can on this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I think that probably is going to, yeah.
I just have one question. I know everybody here, especially department heads, we're going to get a deluge of questions tomorrow. Is there any kind of timeline on the hazard pay? Well, I've already asked her.
What did she tell you?
She didn't know.
What was the question?
The timeline for the hazard pay.
I said Friday, isn't
That's something that I was gonna talk to Charlie and HR about, and we would determine the date.
So we don't
it?
have.
People do need
My birthday's the
people do need
14th.
to know.
Yeah, people need to know when, it doesn't have to be an exact date, just give us an approximate date.
We could, are we doing this as of today?
Yeah,
So-
so we're calculating the amounts as of today.
We could,
But you're going to need to have some conversation with folks who have part-time people who are not working 29 hours.
right, I was gonna try to look at all of our part-time people and see, you know, like a total hours and then get some averages on the ones that, just find out which ones were here, you know, 29 hours a week or whatever. I mean, we can do it as early as, if we're gonna do an additional check run, then we can date it anytime. We can do
It'll
it.
take you a little while to get this together.
It will. Next Friday, we have a regular payroll scheduled, so, you know,
In terms of,
Could you do it this Friday?
in terms of what you need to do in the time it's going to take you, would the third week of October be a feasible time frame?
Yes. That'll be fine.
Well, why don't we say that, then? That'll be our goal.
Okay. All right.
There's your date.
And I'm not gonna kick it down the road, but I'm gonna get asked this, just a question, qualifying question. Bailiffs, they work they get paid by the day, not by the hour, by the day. How do they classify?
Well, I will say, I don't know how the judges have conducted court through all this. I would imagine if it was through video and so forth, they wouldn't need bailiff that day.
We've had actually a lot of court, juvenile has operated in person, even last year.
Off the top of my head, I would say that we would need to know maybe how many days the bailiffs worked. And we could use that to determine what level of part-time they are. I would not want to not include them, because if they're there and the court's being held, they're at risk.
Yeah, we actually started the courts, I say we. The court started back with grand juries last year, about July or August, somewhere along in there. We had some jury trials, but all in between, we did have hearings. And now it wasn't a lot. It was not a lot of court as a normal time period. But there actually was a lot of juvenile type hearings and in-person stuff.
I would say that as part of what Sandy's gonna be doing over the next few weeks in looking at the part-time folks, go ahead and look at the bailiffs too and figure some way to determine what level of part-time. It won't be hours per week necessarily, but, you know, if they worked 1 day a week on average, you know, maybe that's 1/5 of a full-time. But just get something that we can apply uniformly to all of them that's fair. They shouldn't expect it to be a lot, because, you know, they're just not working that many.
Right. Well, I wouldn't anticipate that it would be like a part-time basis, if at all. But I just want to be able to, like you said, answer their questions.
Yeah.
So they'll hear this as quick as my employees, and so they'll have questions.
I think they should get something. I just wouldn't want them to hear, you know, $1,500 and think that's what they're getting, because they're not working anywhere close to that amount of time.
Right. Okay.
So it's going to be a much lesser amount.
Okay, all right, I'll just stay in touch with Stan. Good question.
Not going off on bailiffs, but I think we're going back to we got poll workers during January in the runoff that probably work as many hours as some of these bailiffs have worked this whole time as well. So if we open that door, some of my poll workers are probably going to want to know if they qualify for that. So if we're setting an amount of time, I'll need to know what that would be. If it's, I mean, originally it was, if they work 29 hours, was it 29 hours a week or a pay period that they're considered part-time?
A week.
Okay. So now it sounds like we're not going to hold them to 29 hours a week.
But those aren't hourly paid.
Right. So neither is the poll workers though. So if I need to now start looking at how many hours the poll workers work to see if they would qualify like the bailiffs, I just need to know that, because
I don't want to interject, but I think the key term here is employees.
Okay.
And I don't think that the poll workers are considered employees, they're independent contractors. And I also thought the bailiffs were as well. I may be mistaken on that, but I thought they were independent contractors.
You know, we put them on the payroll a couple of years ago.
Yeah, okay, well, if the bailiffs are on the payroll, then
No, I'm talking about the poll workers.
poll workers are on payroll now.
is taxes withheld from their
Yes.
pay? Yeah, then the key term is employee, so if you set it at 29 hours and you lower it, you gotta have a scale in there to uniformly apply it.
This is getting that.
And that's why I wanted to bring that up,
Yeah.
because I know that some of these are gonna want that, if we're looking at how much time I work. Because y'all remember in December, January, when the Senate runoff, our early voting had a COVID outbreak. So we had people working more hours than probably what they would have normally worked. And if there's a caveat with a number on it, some of these folks may say, wait a minute, they're giving bonuses, I work. And it may just been 2 weeks that they worked that, whereas these bailiffs may have worked that for a year. And I don't know if that needs to be quantified or not, but I just see that might be an open can of worms if we don't.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about the day of voting, you're talking about the early voting.
3 weeks of early voting plus the day of voting. I had some work the day of voting that had worked also 3 weeks of early voting because we had to have them because so many people got sick. And so I agree, the bailiffs they're in there and they're facing these people too. But I think if we open it up to them and they are the same, considered the same as a poll worker, whether it be a contract employee or an employee because they're on the payroll. And I just think I could see some of my folks saying, wait a minute, then we ought to qualify for that as well. And when I sat down a while ago, I was understanding they would not qualify, so I just want to be sure.
And do you know what the pay rate is for them?
No,
It's per day, isn't it?
most of those folks are like the bailiffs. They get a per day rate. It's not an hourly. Now, we do have, I think Tammy has some that works in her office that are hourly, and I think she may have a part-time or two down there. I don't know for sure. I'd have to get her to answer that. But most of my poll workers is a set per day pay that they get for working polls.
I think if somebody works 3 weeks out of the year, that is not part-time, period. I mean, I don't see how you can, I work 3 weeks, so I'm part-time. That's not the case. I think we just have to say they don't qualify.
And I don't disagree with you. I need to be able to explain to these folks that, no, you don't
I
qualify.
say they don't qualify. I don't know about.
Well, I would think of them almost like seasonal employees.
I think you may want to be cautious on how it's worded,
Yeah.
because there's going to be people that's going to hear, I work so many hours,
Yeah.
or I'm a per day payer, or whatever, and they're going to want to qualify or try to get that hazard pay, and I just want to be able to say, no, this group of folks here, that you don't qualify for that.
Sandy, are the bailiffs in the payroll system as employees?
They are, I think they're classified as seasonal, not seasonal. I think they're classified maybe as stipend, because they get a per day
Yeah.
fee, like some of our board like board members and that kind of thing, they get a per day amount.
Scott, do you know what they get per day?
I think it's 75.
That begs the question, do the board members, like the planning commission board members and the board of tax assessors, is they're paid with taxes, what else there?
Board of tax assessors is through payroll.
As far as poll workers, they're different levels. If we have managers, they get a set rate. Assistant managers gets a little less, and then just your poll worker gets less than that. So there's different rates of pay per day.
I make a motion that we put Hubert Parker in charge of figuring this out.
I second.
If you put me in charge, I'm gonna withdraw the whole thing, so be careful. We gotta be careful.
Charlie, I was good until Stacy and Scott confused me, because the 29 hours is what HR says that is the maximum for you to be classified part-time. However, I have employees in solid waste that are relief workers, and we implemented this during COVID, that may only work 1 day a week, but they're paid their payroll, they're listed as part-time. So I think we've got to set some parameters here, because this could go on forever.
You're right. You can.
No expert, Judge.
Yeah.
No expert, but, you know, I don't want to come to a problem without sometimes.
Volunteer fireman.
Yeah.
No, I'm not bringing any more problems. You got enough on your plate.
Here we
I'm
go.
not bringing a single problem. So what I am going to offer you is this.
All right.
Break it down hours. So you do a breakdown of a full-time employee is a full-time employee. A part-time employee based on up to whatever the aggregate amount of 29 hours a week would be for the year. And then continue to break it down from there. Go to 20 hours a week, aggregate amount per year. 15 hours, 10 hours, 5 hours. And you can break it down as a part-time employee with the maximum of 29 hours a week for whatever that equates for the year at $1,500. And then continue to break it down by either increments of 5 or 10 until you get down to maybe $100. Might be the lowest that you give to an employee based on the hours that they work.
Let me throw
What we
another.
approved was $3,000 and $1,500.
Correct. And now I'm just referring to part-time employees.
Yeah.
Well,
We're-
part-time was $1,500, but I thought I heard you saying you were gonna work on the $1,500, if somebody was way less, they'd get $100 or $200. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, sir, based on the hours that they work.
That's not what we approved.
Well, we approved 29 hours part-time, and I thought we did say that if they worked less, that they would get less.
Okay, I missed that. Was that in there?
Yeah.
I didn't have it down like that.
Amend my motion to say the part-time would be proportional.
To the hours that they would have worked. And we would come up with a formula.
Yeah, we can't give somebody that works on average 5 hours a week, $1,500.
Right.
Well, that's not part-time by your definition.
But it is part-time here as far as
Well,
travel was concerned.
Up to
The HR
29 hours a
definition
week.
is up to 29 hours. Anything over that would be deemed
Full-time.
full-time.
Mr. Chairman, you and Sandy will do a good job working this out. And I'm sure the board must have you thought it was. I bet the minutes will reflect that.
Just to be double safe, I am going to amend the motion to say that Sandy has the authority to prorate part-time based on how much time they work.
And I think I can print a report in payroll that shows the total of hours that each person's worked, and that'll be a good starting point.
Speaking of starting point, what's the computational time period? For the purposes of
September
that
30th
motion?
to September.
I would say September 30th of, what's today? Today's 28th.
28.
So would it be as of today or as of tomorrow?
But you gotta have a time frame on which you
I would go back 12 months. Our calendar year, so back 12 months.
That's our fiscal year, so yeah, I would say we go back to the calendar year.
September 28th, 2020.
So, and we're looking at percentages here now, remember, so from January 1 to, let's say, 30th of this month. What percentage of 29 hours per week did the specific part-time people work? We're not even talking about what they're going to work for the rest of the year. But for so far this year, if they're part-time,
For the first 9 months.
what percentage of that 29? Right. So maybe somebody worked 50% of that. They didn't work 20, they did not average 29 hours a week, they averaged half of that. So they get $750. I would say based on the percentage of what would have been 29 hours a week for part-time, what percentage of that did you get to? And you should be able to get that relatively easily.
I like that.
And
I'll do a spreadsheet. You know I like spreadsheets.
And we can still do that, I think, with the,
And I apologize for assisting and taking a 30-minute meeting and turning it into 3 hours. This is just a sample of the minutia that we get bogged down with as department heads every day. Trying to come up with resolutions to things like this. But thank you.
Yes, you're all right. There was a serious amendment to the motion, so do I get it?
What did you say?
I'm amending my motion to say that Sandy has the authority to look at all part-time people and determine what percentage of 29 hours a week that they worked over the time frame from the first of the year to the current, to the 30th. And base the percentage of the $1,500 that they get on that.
So first of the year, I think this starts like we had said, March 1st, 21.
That's for the reimbursement.
That's for the reimbursement, yes,
So you don't want to do it, you want to do it.
I'm gonna second that real quick.
Did you second it?
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does anybody have a need for a executive session? Okay. All right. It's up to you, Hubert.
Well, a sign of relief, I make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Gotta restrike them, take on maintenance on it went. He doesn't like our deal on the ambulance.
Why not? Gave you a really good deal.
Daniel, I told him, I said, we got a great ambulance for you. We just sold it for $700. One we have for maintenance.
No, but you
I said, holy smokes, I didn't need an ambulance. Take it and put it back in the what's a gasoline?
just the box. The least expensive part is the chassis, because they just basically take the box off. Those boxes. Yeah, oh yeah.
That box was probably tens of thousands of dollars.
Because you get what I'm saying, like they're only gonna have 50% of the hours accumulated as somebody hired. But if they average,
You gonna buy another die?
they won't be, because they were hired.
Can I have it by 8:15 in the
No,
morning?
Jim, leave me alone.
my calculator does percentages.
Hubert can help you, I accept that.
And I do like spreadsheets, so I'll have my Did that make sense? Did I answer your question?
It did. I guess my question is it prorating people percentage based on hours of the total year? Especially with, I guess my question is, and you did, because I was confused, if you're just gonna add up and percentages, but you're gonna add up an average. So these people have only done 30 months, but they've averaged 20.
They just got the sign.
Just as soon as I can. I'll do it.